Hey folks, my name's Ed Trevors. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm an Anglican priest serving in the beautiful parish of St. Margaret of Scotland that sits on the ancestral and on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Gwe. I've had a few moments lately that have all sort of got me thinking about, along one particular line. Thinking about how deeply we think, how deeply we consider, how deeply we consider the problems that we're facing. A couple of weeks ago, I was on Twitter, and Ted Cruz and Stephen King, Ted Cruz, the U.S. Senator out of Texas, and Stephen King, the author out of Maine, they were having a little bit of a Twitter spat. They were going back and forth at each other. Now, just for the record, if a guy writes like a few dozen books that are bestsellers, I just don't think I would take the opportunity to try to have a battle of words, a battle of wits with him. But anyway, so they were talking, Ted Cruz they were talking about, two of them were talking about the southern border. And this is something that's common. It's not just Ted Cruz that's saying it. There's a lot of people saying, you know, the southern border, the border between Mexico and the United States, it has never been this bad. It is just being overrun by people seeking entry into the United States, some legally, most in what's deemed to be an illegal fashion. Things have never been this bad. That's the problem, right? The border, we're being overrun with this illegal immigration. That's the problem. The other day, I was in a local store, and there's a new sign that they have on the door. And the sign says, if you're coming into the premises with a bag, with a shopping bag or a backpack, you need to leave those things in these cubbies that we put at the front of the store. You need to leave the bags in those cubbies because we have been experiencing a great deal of theft. So the problem? A lot of shoplifting. Another thing I read, I can't remember if it was on Facebook or Twitter, but it was a person here in the city. They live in a particular neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that's out of the way, but in their neighborhood, behind their house, is a fairly large wooded area. And they said over the last week or so, that wooded area has become filled with people, unhoused people who are living in tents. So an unhoused community, a tent community, has begun to grow in the woods behind this person's house, and they were very upset. They see they're loud. There's an incredible smell of weed coming in and pot. By the way, Halifax is a pot-smoking town. But people are loud, they're swearing, they're fighting, they're causing disruption. This is not the neighborhood that we moved into. It's making us uncomfortable. We can't sleep. Then the police, when they're contacted, simply said, well, make sure your doors are locked. So the problem? Homeless community has moved in next door, and it makes us feel uncomfortable. These are just a few of them. But the thing for me that I hear when I read that story about the tent community, and when I saw that sign at the local store, and when I hear about how bad things are on the southern border between the United States and Mexico, what we hear is our problem. This is my problem. Right? I'm uncomfortable because there's a tent community behind me. Somebody needs to get rid of the tent community in order to make me feel better. I am losing a lot of merchandise due to shoplifting. So I need everybody to put their bags in these cubbies so that I will lose less to shoplifters. We deem that too many people are coming into our country illegally, and we need to close that border down. We need to build a higher wall and make Mexico pay for it. And that, I think, is what I really wanted to get to today. We in the West, we often see our problems. And we can see how we or somebody around us can solve our problems. But do we ever look at what's going on behind the scenes? What's going on if we look at the problem deeper? So take the US-Mexico border. Okay, lots of illegal immigration happening at that border. Why? Why is it so bad right now? Well, it's because Biden's president. Don't think so. But I also don't think it's because Trump was president. It's because the world that those illegals you speak of are coming from is getting worse and worse and worse. They're not coming into our country. They're not coming into our countries because they have such a great life there. Life there is getting worse, which is why they risk what they risk in order to hopefully find a new life. The problem isn't the border. The problem is happening back in those home countries. If those home countries, the problems in those home countries could be resolved, there'd be fewer people trying to leave the store. I acknowledge the fact that it's tough on small businesses to lose inventory to shoplifting. But in our city, inflation has gone through the roof. Rents have skyrocketed. There's almost no availability for affordable housing in this community. People are really, really struggling. So what's the real problem? The shoplifting, or the fact that more and more and more people have to resort to shoplifting? It's the plight of the community that we serve. The homeless community, the tent community behind this neighborhood in that wooded area. Yeah, they're loud. Yeah, there's fighting. Yeah, the music is playing at all the time. Yes, there is drinking, and yes, there is drug use. And yes, it can be uncomfortable. What's the problem? Well, the problem isn't just my discomfort. The problem is these people have no place to go. This is their life. This is the best they can manage to pull off right now. Again, it comes back to the plight of the people in our community. It comes back to the people who are most vulnerable in our community, the people who maybe have lost a job, the people who can't find affordable housing. If we focus, instead of focusing on how the situation becomes a problem for us, if we focus instead on the greater problem, the deeper problems, the more systemic problems, it'll take longer to fix, without question. It'll take longer to fix. It won't be easy. It won't be cheap. But the cascading results will be much better. Not only will our problem be resolved, but the problem that all these other people are experiencing will be resolved. If we were to help out those nations in Central America a little bit more, investing in them, giving to them, forgiving their loans, perhaps those nations become a place where their people are excited to live, where they're not trying to flee from. If we in this city can come up with a plan to build more affordable, homey houses, apartments, places where people want to be and can afford to be, tent cities disappear. If we can somehow curb the greed that is generating so much suffering. Perhaps people don't have to resort to stealing from their neighbors in order to survive. We can't just look at what's going on for us. We must go deeper. We must ask the deeper questions. We must ask the more empathetic and compassionate questions. We must seek the opportunities to alleviate the burdens that are on our neighbors. We'll get the world we want. We'll get the world we want if we focus on what's going on for the people around us. If we take care of the widows and the orphans, if we put shoes on people and clothes on people, if we put a roof over people's heads, if we provide a livable income, we'll get the world we want. But it's going to take more than a sign on the door. It's going to take more than a Twitter war. It's going to take more than complaining to the police about the loud noise outside. We as a community have to step up. We as a community have to step up and be the people that Jesus tells us we're supposed to be. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that when trouble comes, not only will we experience and feel it for ourselves, which is valid, but we'll also be courageous enough to look deeper into the problem. We'll be courageous enough to ask why this is happening, to ask what we can do about it. Amen. Nemultus.